So you're a big, fast boy. You want a bike that's as fast as it is loud, that you can wear flip-flops on and crack dank nooners with ease, or maybe you want to stretch it and lower it and cover it in hentai. Well, there's one class of motorcycles that stands apart from the rest of the crowd as the favorite of squids, stretchy boy degenerates, and track rats alike. You need a Gixxer. But the question is, what Gixxer? There's a whole lot of them, from shockingly good GSXR 1000s to the absolutely wretched GSX 250Rs, to the great and mighty Hayabusa, the king of bikes and the greatest beginner motorcycle ever made. Well, lucky for you, my young squidlet, we're about to break down the world of Gixxer ownership, starting from the first time you saw a dude with frosted tips dismounting on his Chrome 750, all the way up to that fateful moment where you took the plunge with that 2002 Gixxer 600 Street Fighter you bought for $800. That's right, we're taking aim at some of the most notorious sport bikes ever made, and instead of making a video about each one of them, we're going to talk about all of them in one fell swoop. Now, there's a lot of bikes to cover since Suzuki spent the last 40 years cranking out squid missiles, so ditch that helmet, grab a wife beater, and let's find out if the Gixxer is all it's cracked up to be. But first, a word from today's sponsor, me! Have you ever been bored or scrolling through YouTube late at night trying to answer the eternal question R3 or Ninja 400 only to stumble across this handsome boy who calls himself Clammy Dudes and keeps shouting about Turbo Busas? Well, my nubile young squid, that boy is me, and I'm here to tell you about some of the freshest motorcycling memes out there. Seriously, we employ teams of scientists testing the efficacy of every single thing we say. That way you know for sure that when I tell you that the Turbo Busa is the best beginner bike of all time, you can buy with confidence. Oh yeah, we also give away motorcycles from time to time. In fact, we've got 7 up for grabs right now. Look at it. Look at the flex. Look at this. My God! Including our R1 giveaway, which is ending on September 15th. So if you want to win a shiny red leader bike that won't have you mercilessly clowned on like some Gixxer boy, you need to head over to yammie.co and get entered. You'll get access to our Discord server, weekly live streams, and exclusive content. If you like what we do and you want to support us, this is the best way to do it. Click the link down below and get started. Now back to Gixxers. They first rolled out of the factory in 1984 with the GSXR 400 for sale in Japan only. What's up with that? Which was followed by a 750 in 1985 and an 1100 in 1986. These bikes were Suzuki's answers to the new shift in the Japanese market, leaving the old UJM style of motorcycles for more performance-oriented machines. Honda had introduced the VF series of motorcycles, and Yamaha came to bat with the FZ 750, and Suzuki, well, they made a race bike with lights. The GSXR 750 made 100 horsepower and 52 foot-pounds of torque out of its 748cc inline 4, and it weighed in at 408 pounds wet, which is a featherweight compared to the modern sport bikes. It was created to compete in the AMA Superbike series, which had just dropped the maximum engine displacement from 1025 to 750, and the competition was fierce. It took them a few years, but they did manage to dethrone the Honda in 1989 with the Gen 2 750. This bike was making 112 horsepower and 55 foot-pounds of torque, but somehow managed to cram another 90 pounds worth of stuff into it, giving it a wet weight of almost 500 pounds. Now, while the 750 was stealing the show in the racing world, Suzuki was making 250s for the Japanese market. It had a 248cc inline 4 making 45 horse and 18 foot-pounds of torque, which compared to the modern 250s is a freaking rocket ship. But don't worry, I have a whole thing about the modern GSX 250R coming in a few minutes. This was a water-cooled 4-stroke carbureted bike, which compared to the 750 was shockingly advanced. Suzuki also made an 1100cc variant, which was just an example of speed in excess. It was a beefy boy making 143 horse and 86 foot-pounds of torques, but with that impressive power came 530-pound wet weight. Its an 1127cc displacement made it way too big to compete in any competitive arena, so much like the Busa, it roamed the highways doing massive top-speed pulls. The third generation came in 1992 and featured a new 600cc model, featuring a 599cc inline 4 pumping out 106 horse and 48 foot-pounds. However, none of the other models had managed to work their way from under the shadow of the 750, which updated, Jesus Christ. However, none of the other models had managed to work their way out from under the shadow of the 750, which was updated with liquid cooling, more power, more torque, and less weight. This is also the last generation of 750s to feature the power jet in the carbs, which helped smooth out the top-end power. The Yammie Noob corporate stance on carburetors is that they all suck and can die in a fire, but if you absolutely must have a carb Gixxer out of some sort of masochistic hate of fun or deep-rooted self-loathing, this is the year to buy. It was the full package. It had adjustable suspension, quality brakes, and classic old-school sport bike looks. I'm going to skip over generations 4 and 5, but TLDR, its new looks in 94 and the new aluminum frame in 96. Instead, I want to move away from the flagship 750 and talk about the Speed Wars. By now we all know the stories, but for those of you who don't, this was a period where all the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers were competing to make the single fastest motorcycle they could. You had the VFR 1000R at 150 miles per hour, then the next year the Kawasaki Ninja 900 at 158, then the Bimota YB6X Up at 170 is a weird Italian entry, then the Ninja ZX11 at 175 miles per hour, and then finally the Honda CBR 1100 XX Super Blackbird Big Stonkin' Huge King Dick with 180 miles per hour. It was one fast bike after another, but none of these bikes were competing on the track. It was just about straight line speed, so it ended up being on the story on page 3 while the 750 class of bikes were busy taking up the front page spotlight. But in 1999, Suzuki took their red-headed stepchild, the GSXR 1100, and used the squid stone and evolved into the GSX 1300R Hayabusa. Rumor had it that it would do over 200 miles per hour, or it could do 199 right off the showroom floor, but in reality it could only achieve a paltry 194 miles per hour. But that was enough to completely crush all the other bikes in the Speed Wars. The story goes the Japanese government sent a letter to Suzuki, Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki, asking them kindly to stop the Speed Wars, and a secret agreement was reached that no bike would exceed around 186 miles per hour in stock form. It's one of the greatest bedtime stories in the modern motorcycling world. If you want to learn more regular car reviews, posted a great video several years ago detailing the history of the Hayabusa. Now a bunch of squids turned it into rolling turbo light shows with tractor tires in the rear and swing arms inversely proportional to the size of their manhood. But back to the Gixxers. The next major development came in 2000 with a complete redesign and fuel injection. Wow. No more carbs! No more carbs! Carbs can all suck a dick! They also released the GSXR 1300. Nope. Well, I really want to talk about boosters, I guess. They also released the GSXR 1000, which replaced the 1100, and the era of the GSXR 750 came to an abrupt end as racing moved away from the 750 class. The K1 made 160 horse and 81 foot-pounds of torque out of its 988cc liquid-cooled inline 4. It weighed in at 430 pounds and was a properly fast-going 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and clearing the quarter mile in 10.1 at 142 miles per hour. It was lighter and faster than the R1, making it the top of the class. Suzuki tinkered and fiddled with the 1000 over the next 4 years until they reached the zenith of squid missiles. The engine championed by the ever diehard Suzuki boy, the K5. Just saying K5 around a Gixxer bro will cause his mouth to water in a Pavlovian response, but why was it so good? Well, it saw a bump to 998 cc's and it put down 178 horse and 87 pounds of torque. It was mated to an all-new frame that was lighter and shorter, dropping its weight down to 366 pounds dry. Reliable wet numbers are hard to find, but it was certainly under 430 pounds wet. This bike wasn't without problems though. To save weight, Suzuki made the frame just large enough to contain the engine, which resulted in a lot of cracking when the bikes hit big bumps or low speed drops. Now those are the big historical moments for the Gixxer family, but what if you wanted a showroom shiny bike? Which of the 4 proper GSXRs should you buy? Let's start at the bottom with the GSX 250R. This is a piece of garbage. Do not buy this motorcycle. It has an itty-bitty 249cc parallel twin, making a whole 25 horsepower and 17 pounds of torque, and it weighs in at 392 pounds. That's pathetic! Absolutely pathetic. GSX 250R, when the MT-03 is just a little bit too scary. To give you some context, the Duke 390, the most patrician of beginner bikes, makes 42 horse and weighs in at 338 pounds wet. The GSX 250R is the most pathetic attempt to break into the beginner bike market. Suzuki would have been better off literally just not making this motorcycle. The only thing redeeming about this rolling atrocity is its low price tag at $4,499, but the MT-03 costs just $100 more, and you can make them super fun with just a couple of mods. So scrounge around through your couch, find a couple coins, rub them together, and then you can get an MT-03. Hell, even the CBR 300R makes 30 horsepower, and you can get one of those on Craigslist for a carton of cigarettes and a pair of old tennis shoes. Now, I know a bunch of people are about to chime in down in the comments saying that for Asian markets, but remember how the old 250 used to make damn near 50 horsepower? There is no reason to buy a GSX 250R, period. End of discussion. I say this as a reluctant Suzuki Hayabusa boy. Moving up, we have the GSXR 600. This is the motorcycle for the most aspiring track day junkie. It features a 599cc inline 4 pumping out 125 horse and 50 foot-pounds of torque, weighs in at 412 pounds wet. Contrary to popular opinion, the top speed of this motorcycle is not 186 miles per hour on the freeway, but rather 157. Don't let that dissuade you though, the GSXR 600 is one of the most solid platforms to turn into a race bike that you can get. It's got fully adjustable Showa suspension, slipper clutch, Brembo brakes, rider modes, electronics, and more. It's also known as one of the most robust 600s ever. They apparently pull super hard, and resident fast boy and somewhat frequent guest on the channel, Brandon Altmaier, says it's the best in the class. He knows better than I do. Listen to him. You can't swing a stick at a track without hitting a gaggle of GSXR 600 riders, and there's a reason they're so popular. They're also only $11,399 on the showroom floor, which is not bad compared to the R6's $12,000 price point. Next up on the ladder, we have the GSXR 750. Now, the best way to think of this bike is like the 600, but it's all hopped up on cocktail of pre-workout shakes and Monster energy drinks. It's packing a 749cc inline 4, making 148 horse and 64 foot-pounds of torque. It's not too much heavier than the 600 and only 418 pounds wet, and while it's a great track weapon, this is typically the choice of street squids doing fat 60 to 160 pulls. It's got the same features as the 600, so just paying $12,499 for a bigger engine. Last, we have the Big Daddy Gixxer 1000. It's got a 999999999cc inline 4, making 199,999,999 horsepower and 87 foot-pounds of torque. It's a little on the heavy side at 447 pounds. The R1's 441, but it has all the same features you'd want from a $17,699 top king dick leader bike. Rider modes, launch control, cornering ABS, traction control, bidirectional quick shifter, fully adjustable suspension, a leg massager, a back rubber, and it might even give you a handy sometimes. The works! It's a solid choice for those squids out there who'd rather have a stretch kit and lights instead of a cross-plane crank. Also, apparently the 1000 pulls super duper hard. Like really hard. But Papa Yams, I desperately want to start out on a Gixxer so I can pop wheelies and flip-flops and not be judged. Unfortunately, there is not really a good starter Gixxer. The 250 is a 6-toed homunculus, the 600 is a race bike, the 750 is a race bike on steroids, and the 1000 is just a GP bike with lights. You're better off starting on something from one of the other big four or getting a DRZ if you have the patience to put up with carburetors. That, or you could get yourself a Hayabusa. Just saying. So, I hate to break it to you, but this video is actually over. But if you hit this one right over here, you can keep watching your sweet Papa Yam doing some fun stuff. And if for nothing else, do it for Yammie-chan. Don't worry, I'll wait. I'll just wait, it's okay. Take your time.